Couple of love that I did. A couple of culture stories, you know, woke rubbish stories that I. Oh, before we do that, please tell me you're with me. Don't we support the farmers? What an absolute disgraceful way. People don't understand what the budget has done to these farmers. Farms that have spent years, hundreds of years in their family to be passed down. They don't make an awful lot of money. They do a very important job. There could be up to 40,000 of them marching tomorrow. I stand absolutely with the farming community. I think it's disgraceful the way Starmer's treated them, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we had a very powerful interviewee on Talk earlier on today who's had the family have been working the same land for, I think he said 300 years,
Yep.
you know. And in other countries, in Australia and New Zealand, they actually stopped inheritance tax for the very reason that it was breaking up family farms. It is a crazy thing to do. £1 million is a really low threshold when you think of the value of the farmhouse, the machinery, all the land. It doesn't mean that these farmers are multi-millionaires.
And also, Tim Bonner, head of the Countryside Alliance, told me something I didn't know earlier, and I'm quoting him. If you look at the value of a farm, you should take as 1% the money that the farmer would take out of it. So that's £10,000 for $1 million. And he was talking about a friend of his, got a £5 million farm, right? Makes £50,000 a year. I think it's a really... And actually what Tim Bonner said, which was really interesting, was, and from our point of view as a station, and the people that listen, that they were absolutely told by Starmer on the run-up to the election this would not happen, and they feel, apart from angry about the decision, they feel really betrayed by a guy who basically bought their vote and then did the dirty on them. And I listen, I've never, ever, I'm not saying go on strike to anybody, but farmers have an absolute right to protest on this, and I think they'll find the government, very much like with pensioners, there's going to be huge groundswell of support amongst the British public. I think that.
Yeah, I mean, looking at those images of the tractor, there's something really primal, isn't there, about farming and farmers? And, you know, they are the absolute lifeblood of our nation. You know, if you ever met a lazy farmer, you know, these are people that work the most horrendous hours. They are up so early, they're toiling away. It's not glamorous, it's not particularly thanked. You know, they do it because it's actually a way of life, you know, particularly up north. You know, there's sheep farmers that barely make a penny. They make a loss in some cases, but this is almost their heritage. And it will a tremendous sense of failure from one generation to another if you can't keep it going. And I think it's so sad that this government has such little understanding of it. You know, this is a cabinet that is chock full of people that have never really spent any time in the countryside, probably have not the slightest understanding how family farming works.
Even a Labour peer whose name I don't have tweeted today that the Labour Party is too urban and doesn't understand the importance of the rural community and what this tax will do for farmers. Now, hold on to your hat because you're going to love this one. The East Anglian University, Isabel Oakeshott, could be described as woke. It slapped a trigger warning on a Sherlock Holmes murder mystery. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's thriller, The Hound of the Baskervilles, was declared emotionally and intellectually challenging by soft-touch dons. English literature scholars were warned that the 1902 book, that's about 300 years ago, the third Sherlock Holmes novel, contained violence and murder. Module leaders said students may also be triggered by discussion of the plot's relationship with gender, sexuality and race during their lectures, and were prepared to help and support students, I'm trying to keep a straight face, who might find this difficult while studying it. Now, I have today been called right-wing, OK? I am really happy to be called... What a load of old... What is going on, Isabel? That's just... what now Sherlock Holmes is an arse. I mean, really? Really?
I mean, wear that right-wing badge with pride. You know, common sense is what this is, saying this is ridiculous. I mean, what next? I mean, maybe I've missed something. Are there trigger warnings on Shakespeare now? I mean, there's so much in Shakespeare that would be very traumatising to people.
To be or not to be, but I didn't be. I feel like honestly, I don't understand in the end where one is going to... I mean, what about this one? A teacher failed to sue her school for marriage and age discrimination after she was referred to as Miss Jesus. Instead of Mrs. on letters addressed to her. Enolia Alabi told an employment tribunal she felt embarrassed and humiliated when her pay slips failed to acknowledge her marital status. She told the tribunal that Miss was less than Mrs. and so this was an act of discrimination from her bosses at the school and she wanted money. Despite staff insisting the wrong label was used as part of an administrative error, the business studies and computer science teacher asserted it must have been done deliberately. I feel very traumatised by this whole experience and I'm going to sue the school. I've gone.
I mean, words fail, don't they? This should never have gone anywhere. No one should ever indulge this absolute nonsense. In fact, people who bring cases like this should be made to pay all the associated costs for the time that they waste. I genuinely, it's just unbelievable, isn't it?
You know, I said to you last week, I think we were talking about this, I'm genuinely quite... and I mean this, I think one of the best things that's happened in this country over the last few years is that people are talking more and more about mental illness. But I have a caveat to that, which causes a lot of people to go, well, that's outrageous. No, it's not. I think for every person who's able to speak up and talk about how anxiety and depression has blighted their lives, we are now seeing increasing numbers of people who are going, I'm sorry I'm crap at my job, but it's anxiety. I'm sorry, honestly, Mrs. instead of Miss. It's just like, it's almost as if people are taking this woke world we now live in and thinking, how can I make that play out for me? And I think that insults the genuine people, Isabel. That's what I think.
I'm surprised that you think the focus on mental health has been one of the best things. I think a little bit of it would have been a good thing, but there's been far too much of it.
Yeah, I get that. But you know what happened to me and everything, and I was very honest with what happened to me, and I had a breakdown for 3 months, and I never thought that would happen to me, and so I was happy to talk about it. But what I'm saying is there are people, but there's also a large number of people, as I just alluded to, who will now say, I can't do this for that. It's like when I get told there's 4 million people unemployed and they're all disabled or mentally ill. No, they're not. 2 million of them are lazy. 2 million of them need to get off their backsides and go to work because the system's allowing them not to. So that would be my take on it.
Well, I mean, of course, I would agree with you about people who obviously abuse the system. We need to support people who really can't work, but in this absolute industrial scale of abuse of the system, that only undermines the claims of people who really need it. And it's awful when people have cancer and they have to jump through dozens of hoops to get the help they need. I hate hearing about those cases. It's so galling, when you have people who are in genuine need who are actually finding it difficult to get the support they need and deserve. And yet you've got so many people who quite clearly don't need to be relying on the state because they are well enough and fit enough to work, and yet they're doing this as a lifestyle choice.
And I think that is the point, and that's why I get angry about the NHS and the welfare state, because I am very happy to pay my taxes for people who can't work, people who are sick. I genuinely am more than happy. I think that's one of the greatest things about this country, but we've got to a point now where those systems are being abused. And let's not forget, whatever it is, whether it's what we're talking about here, whether it's medical, whether it's financial, the fact is the genuine people are missing out because people are taking the PISS out of a system. It's like, this will go down like a lead balloon. It's like I said every day about the migrant crisis. Make it less attractive to be here then. No hotels, no money. You'll be on a beach like you are in France. That'd stop the boats in a heartbeat. We're soft, Isabel, but we're not soft to our own people.
Well, you and I are not soft, so if we were in charge, then none of this would be happening. And no one can say it can be solved overnight. But, if you could be so much stricter on the allocations of benefits so that we actually manage to, cut out so many of the people that are, frankly, taking the mickey.
Oh, bless her.
They're out for people in the worst position.